Good morning. Welcome to episode 111 of the Driller Newscast, a weekly update on the news and stories impacting the construction, the drilling, the water, and geothermal industry. I'm your host, Brock Yordy, and this week we're going to talk environmental and weather related safety to the summer. Why? Because we're still seeing injuries. There's plenty of curveballs coming out. We now have the creepy crawlies, all kinds of things. I was just in Tennessee with the cicadas. There's plenty going on that our people need to be aware of. For our feature this week, we're going to honor the fallen, all those great individuals in the armed forces who gave it their all. Before we jump into honoring our fallen, let's get back into some safety. All right. Is it Monday morning, 6:30 right now? And everybody else has the day off yet, and you're getting ready to jump in a pump truck, go do a service call, or you're just getting your week ready. If you're just getting your week ready, grab that cup of coffee, go back to the loved one, go honor the fallen. It's the unofficial start this summer. We have plenty of work to do this summer. It's going to be hot. There's all kinds of crazy things going on. Take the day. Life's too short. Let's talk environmental, weather, insects, summer safety. We've been talking about this, but I need you to think right now. We got a 4-day work week. We have people that have just rolled in on Tuesday morning, and maybe they spent too much time on the grill, on the golf course, on the water. They're a little bit tired. Maybe they're a little bit dehydrated. We got to get our people refocused, because now it's a mad dash to the 4th of July holiday. These are the things I need you to be thinking about. This comes directly from OSHA. We've been hitting on this. Again, we need the right standard operating procedures and the right policies in place and the right mindset to be safe this summer. We've had some wild extreme weather, lightning, tornadoes, flooding. So lots of things going on. We got to get our heads centered around this. OSHA states both employees and employers must take steps to reduce health impacts of climate change, including keeping cool and staying hydrated. Got to hydrate to be great. Outdoor employees should drink enough water, take breaks, and seek out shade when possible. Employers should require workers to take breaks in a cool location and make sure that employees don't skip these breaks. We must plan, train, and monitor. Get the NIOSH OSHA heat index app. We keep talking about it. You need it. This is preventing a lot of bad situations. You as an employer have to have a written plan to prevent heat illness. We also have to recognize and train our employees about heat hazards. We're seeing this. You can watch the Weather Channel. You can watch your local news. You can get on the National Weather Service. There's plenty of ways that are saying, hey, heads up. Beyond that, we got to start checking our outdoor air quality. Think about last summer with all the smoke, but we have plenty of situations from silica to other urban things that are going on that can be impacting our job sites. We need to understand our air quality. There's a great place you can go, and that's at Air Now, and that will give us our pollen count and local weather reports. This is all about us being 21st century. We need to pay attention to wildfire, smoke, and ash warnings. If there is a air quality warning, we need to know how that impacts our employees. Next, I want you to think about, as we're working in the outdoors, and right now, getting back from Tennessee, there are cicadas everywhere, and they're affecting our job sites and whatnot, and they're getting down our work clothes, and they're in our hard hats, and they're distracting. We need to be thinking about that. But beyond that, we need to have the right insect repellent. We need to make sure our people are wearing long sleeves. We need to think about mosquitoes. We need to think about ticks. We need to think about, we're on a job site that is pretty remote and long grass and whatnot. somebody a day later starts getting sick, or maybe 4 or 5 days, we need to think about how that can impact us. And if that was from mosquitoes or ticks, again, we have to have the written policy. We need to start thinking about that and how that's going to work. Beyond that, bees, snakes, site assessment is critical for us to be successful. Site assessment that tells us where our egress is, where we can seek shelter, how we can leave that job site if there's a big rain and there's a storm coming. Maybe it's not matted. There are plenty X factors that we need to start thinking about. How can this affect us today? And I think from tornadoes to extreme weather to extreme heat to insects and distractions, and then the fact that we are in a mad dash to get to the 4th of July holiday and repeat what we just had last weekend. So our people can be physically and mentally on site, operating smartly, or maybe they're just physically there and they're mentally already on a boat. These are the things we need to be thinking about. What is your policy? I'd like to hear it. Go out, be safe. Today's May 27th. We honor all the great individuals in the United States military that gave their all. It's Memorial Day, and we need to be thinking about our fallen and how that impacts us and how it impacts others and how we champion that. We have plenty of holidays that recognize brave men and women in the military. And Memorial Day is for the fallen, but we also need to be recognizing deployments and war and the impact on that. And I think when I think about this, I go back to George Washington's quote: "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation." Yeah, he said it. Recognizing the veterans and those that were veterans, you know. So I think we need to understand why it's near and dear to my heart on Memorial Day that we think about our veterans and those who have fallen in the entire sacrifice. Honoring our fallen is a sacred day. At the Driller, we champion all construction workers. And I want you to take a moment on Memorial Day, be it you're listening to this today, or maybe it's next week, a week from now. I need you to take this moment and consider what President George Washington was saying. Because here's the wild piece, construction workers. George Washington established the first military professionals as combat engineers. As we went from infantry and warriors, we needed warriors that could be engineers. And he did this in 1775. And as we got our nation's independence, we saw our brave combat engineers get major recognition just nearly 25 years later in the War of 1812, where the Army Corps of Engineers fortified New York Harbor, including the fort that ends up being the base of the Statue of Liberty. Since the War of 1812, these brave combat engineers have gone into battle and war-torn areas to bring construction capabilities for, yes, defense, but also to build utilities, to give support, to dismantle traps and fortifications through explosives and dozers, to the very special work that is needed for drilling water or repairing a runway. And why do I say very special? Because they grabbed their helmet and their hard hat and they jumped into that bulldozer for EOD or for moving those Huskos, or they parachuted like the great men and women in the Red Horse units onto bomb riddled runways to evaluate if it could be repaired, to give our military the support capabilities we needed to help defend freedom. So from Fort Leonard Wood with the U.S. Army to Nellis Air Force Base and on to China Lake with the Navy Seabees, there's many bases out there that our troops train to become combat ready and capable of giving support to not only our bases and FOBs, but to surrounding communities, and to show the local citizens that democracy and freedom is obtainable. The past 2 decades, I've had the great honor of working with the U.S. Army National Guard and Air Guard on water well drilling units that have deployed into Iraq and Afghanistan and Africa, onto the United States Air Force Red Horse combat engineers who are active duty, that are going out and drilling water wells and building runways and buildings and schools and infrastructure, just like the Army of Corps engineers. So as I thought about our construction industry, which is very small, less than 8 million Americans, and we think about how the combat engineers are equally small compared to the rest of the capabilities of the military, how important we are. And I started doing research on the individuals who have fallen while executing construction tasks while deployed. It's a big, big list. And we think about water well drilling units in Korea to infrastructure we needed to build on the places we've deployed, not in military actions, but in support. And to grab that shovel and get out in the middle of it to lend support while you have a Force Pro team around you, it's a great sacrifice. So instead of missing a single great individual, I want us to take a moment right now and pause. I want you to close your eyes. Think about all those combat engineers. Yes, everybody who has fallen, let's recognize them. But right now, let's think about combat engineers that have given their all. I want you to say thank you and acknowledge those men and women operating heavy equipment abroad, including V2000s from Versadrill and 50Ks from George E. Failing, Caterpillar dozers, Aztec Industry cement plants, cranes that not only lift temporary bunkers, but are used to hoist pumps out of a village center to disinfect that well so they can figure out why the heck there's a cholera outbreak. It's a big thing for us to lend our support around the world. And it's even bigger when you're doing it from a piece of heavy equipment and making an impact on that part of civilization for the rest of their time. I have one more final thought, and I think a lot about this. From my father dying of COVID, being a decorated Vietnam veteran with the Navy Cross, to a recent discussion I had on a plane with a family member of a fallen soldier. We're talking about Memorial Day. And they mentioned their fallen soldier fell 3.5 years after returning home. And the concern was The soldier didn't fall in battle or deployment. I think about the same thing. My father, from his post-traumatic stress from Vietnam, and thinking about he didn't trust the vaccine and the polarity of our country, and his exposure to Agent Orange was an underlying condition that made it much worse. And this isn't a political discussion right now, but it's important for us to think about this. All who have fallen from battle and deployment. In March 2024, I read an interview at pbs.org, and this statement has stuck with me. And we've talked about this on the newscast, but it's pretty big. Since 9/11, more than 30,000 active duty service members or veterans of the post 9/11 wars have died by suicide. 30,000. That is more than 4 times the number of those who have died in combat. 4 times. You know, they come home and they're safe at home in the greatest country in the world. And we make statements often on the news and in many places and monuments that are American flag flying with lights on it. And we make the statements that we should honor the fallen every day, regardless if it's Memorial Day. We should also be checking up on those who made it home physically, but not completely mentally. Go to the 988lifeline.org website. Read up on all the information there is. There are lots of resources. We've talked about it on the newscast. It's been talked about in every major news publication and magazine out there. It's pretty easy to get the resources to understand. We've talked about mental health in veterans and construction workers. And we have awareness months. You know, these brave individuals went into combat. They supported our missions. They built infrastructure, brought clean water to our troops, into communities, and they were not afraid. We cannot be afraid to let them know we're here to help, that we can help you, that we can get you the help you need. This is just important. We honor those that have given it all. I hope you had a great start to the summer and you spent time to reflect and enjoy your family and the freedoms we have. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Thank you for joining us for episode 111 of the Driller Newscast. We got lots of news. There's lots of things going on. Climate change is real. We're seeing Brazil with the worst flooding. We need to be flipping over to the BBC NewsHour on NPR, 9 a.m. Eastern every day, listening to what's happening around the world on climate change and water policy. We need to be aware of the PFAS policy and the politics that are happening that impact the environment. Extreme weather and climate change, it's a big deal. We have to appreciate all that we have, that we can worry about the environment due to the sacrifices of the great individuals that gave it all so that we can live in this great country and help progress civilization. Check out thedriller.com. We have great content coming out all the time. To mad dash the 4th of July, let's make sure our people are focused and that we are thinking about, are they physically on site, but mentally not? Have a great week.